Good morning and welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbus's online Sunday service. I'm Kelly McNeil and I serve as the Director of Congregational Life here at First Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbus. Reverend Marion is on vacation and will be back with us soon. As we begin our time together, we acknowledge that we are on land that Native Americans inhabited for at least 14,000 years. In central and southern Ohio, long before white people came, Native groups traversed, hunted, fished, and farmed near the Scioto and Olentangy rivers. A large burial mound near High and Mound Streets was built by the Adena culture between 800 BCE and 100 CE. Other Native groups lived here as well. In the 1770s, members of the Seneca Cayuga Nation established a village on the banks of the Scioto near present-day Columbus. Under the Indian Removal Act of 1830, Native tribes in central Ohio were forcibly removed to lands west of the Mississippi River. I invite you now to center yourself into this moment and listen as Nathan plays our prelude. Thank you, Nathan. Good morning again, and welcome to First UU. As I said, my name is Kelly McNeil, and I serve as the Director of Congregational Life. It is so very good to be with you this morning. If you're visiting with us, welcome. Please let us know that you are here by filling out our visitors form on our website. You can find a link to that in the chat box. I hope you all had a relaxing Thanksgiving, whatever that looked like for you. This morning, as we wrap up our month of healing, I invite you to grab your chalice or a candle as we light our chalice together with these words from Nancy MacDonald Ladd. Our words are from To Wake, to Rise, and they're entitled More Love, a Call to Worship. We gather in community every Sunday in a state of conflict for our very souls, a state both expansively hopeful and restrictively confined. We are hopeful that we might rise to meet a new day for those who seek and who serve the Spirit, hopeful that each and every one of us might encounter the sacred within, among, and beyond every human soul, and hopeful that such an encounter might work through us to topple the idolatries of our age. And yet, we also gather as a people who are not yet free, a people confined, unfree, contained. We are confined, unfree, contained, because in this culture of division built upon the pain of the people at the margins, even the decent people hold our love too tightly. Putting it in boxes, prefacing it with qualifications, I will love you if, I will see you if, I will bear the truth of my soul alongside you if, and only if, you agree with me. You look like me. You stand like me. You think like me. You act like me. You sing like me. You wear your gender on your sleeve and produce it upon demand. I will love you and will meet you in the sanctuary of our hearts if and only if you give me evidence of your good liberal virtues. If and only if you never fail to speak the language of the movement and never weep upon a street corner out of grief for your sheer inadequacy and the vastness of the struggle that you cannot even name. We are imprisoned by these ifs and these only ifs. We are confined by the smallness of our loving, even as our souls remind us that we can only get free if we all get free together. And so today, as we intersect in honest work, let our hopefulness mingle with our conviction. Let our willingness to love beyond our expectations or experience break down our long-held barriers. Let our willingness to be honest about the hardest questions open us to new truths. May there truly be more love, with no labels and no binary, and no preface and no qualification and no arithmetic and no limit. May there be more love to liberate us all, and may we keep on today and every day until we find it and share it inch by precious inch with one another and the world. Our chalice is lit. Please join me in our first song to bring us into the theme of the service. Let this be a house of peace.
Let this be a house of peace, of nature and humanity, of sorrow and elation. Let this be our house, a haven for the healing, an open room for question and our inspiration. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of freedom, guardian of dignity and worth held deep inside us. Let this be our house, a platform for the free voice, where all our sacred differences here shall not divide us. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be our house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let all in this house seek truth, where scientists and mystics abide in reverence here. Let this be our house, a house of our creation, where works of art and melodies consecrate must be. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of
Good morning. I'm Amber Scott, your Director of Religious Exploration. Due to the holiday weekend, there are no Sunday school classes today, so that both our teachers and our families can have a bit of a day off. Please email me if you'd like more information about our programs for children and youth. I am so excited for our story today. Usually, I get to read to you, which is a ton of fun. But today, some people you might recognize from church are going to read the story instead. Our friends, Elora and Aaron. Today's story is called Exclamation Mark, written by Amy Krauss Rosenthal, illustrated by Tom Lichtenheld, and published by Scholastic.
Hi, this is Erin Riley Sanders,
and Elora,
and we're excited to share one of our favorite books with you.
Let's begin! Exclamation mark.
By the New York Times best-selling team, Amy Krauss Rosenthal and Tom Lichtenheld.
Exclamation mark. He stood out from the very beginning. He stood out here. He stood out there. It seemed like the only time he didn't stand out was when he was asleep. He tried everything to be more like that. But he just wasn't like everyone else, period. He was confused, flummoxed, and deflated. He even thought about running away. Then, one day.
Hello? Who are you? What grade are you in? What's your favorite color? Do you like frogs? What's your favorite ice cream? When's your birthday? Know any good jokes? Do you want to race to the corner? Is there an echo in here? Is there an echo in here? What's your favorite movie? Do you know what makes gravity? Why do you look so surprised? Am I boring you? Do you think a snail could go around the world? So, what do you want to do? Who's taller, you or me? What do you want to be when you grow up?
Stop! He didn't know that he had it in him.
How do you do that? Can you do it again?
He wasn't sure, so he started small. Hi! That felt right, so he tried something bigger. Howdy! As he pushed himself a bit more, wow! He discovered a world of endless possibilities. Yippee! Way to go! This is fun! Bravo! It's like he broke free from a life sentence. You're it! Yes! Cool! Yum! That's great! Thanks! Home run! Congratulations! Happy birthday! Go! Encore! Wake up! Look out! Boo! He couldn't wait to show everyone. Hey guys, it's me! Look what I can do! Of course, there was much exclaiming.
Isn't he something? There was never any question in our minds.
So, with his head held high, he went off to make his mark. The end.
So after reading this book, we thought that this had a lot to do in common with the Unitarian Universalist principles. And we're looking at the children's version here. So, Elora, do you want to read us number 1?
That would be one of my favorite things to do. So, we believe in each other and every person is important.
So what do you think that this book has to do with that principle?
I was thinking that he believed in each other, that they had enough, and he believed every person in there was important. Number 2, we believe in all people should be treated fairly. And what I think for that one is he was treated pretty fair.
I think one of the important things about this book is that expecting exclamation mark to do the same things as the period and the question mark made it really tough for exclamation mark. And so to treat exclamation mark fairly, they had to understand that exclamation mark was different and be able to treat exclamation mark the way he was.
Yeah. Well, moving on, and I'm pretty sure Mama would really like to read the next one.
Okay, I can read the next one. In our congregations, all people are accepted and we learn together. What does that mean?
That means, like,
In our congregations, all people are accepted and we learn together.
so I think he was really, really being good to people, and he was accepting everybody who got in his way. Except one time he tried doing his only thing he didn't know, and then he learned.
For me, one of the most important things about accepting all people is understanding that all people are different and that we should expect different things from them based on their abilities. Exclamation mark wasn't very good at being anything other than an exclamation mark, no matter how hard he tried. So giving people room to do the things that they excel at is also really important.
Can I read the next one?
Yep.
We believe in each other's personal.
We believe each
person is free to search for what is true and right in life.
And how does that apply to our story?
It's because they believed in each person in this book to have a free search of what's true and what they want to do together now that they've gotten along.
Yeah, I think exclamation mark had to search for what is true. And by trying to learn new things, he was able to find out more about what he was good at and what he enjoyed.
Like making some pretty cool words with just himself.
So if you were going to give anybody advice from this book and our principles, what would you tell them to do?
Basically, you would search for the thing that you're good at. Make sure everybody has their own freedom and their own way to be. And we should make sure to believe everybody is important in this world.
And I think that's a great thought to end on, because I think that is one of my favorite principles. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching.
The end. Thank you, Elora and Aaron, for today's story. Please email me if you are interested in reading the story in a future service. Maybe you felt confused, flummoxed, and deflated while trying to figure out where you fit and how to live your values. As we heard in the children's version of our 7 principles, each person is important. We learn together and we need to believe in each other. This support is necessary for a fruitful search for truth and meaning. We all need each other for this community to be great. I invite you to think about our individual differences and to imagine all the ways we can support our different needs together. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Thank you, Alora, Erin, and Amber, for helping us think about how being ourselves in community connects us to our UU values. Exclamation point. I'm Isabel Cole, your Assistant Minister of Pastoral Care, and later in our time together, I will hold space for our joys and sorrows. I invite you now to use the chat box to type your full name and in 10 words or less, your sorrow or joy. Then select Send to Panelists. We will share them later with just your first name and then again in Rev Talk later in the week by email. In the future, you're welcome to submit a request ahead of time on our website under Connections. This is also a place to ask us to get in touch with you for pastoral care, request a caring card, or get support from our caring network. I invite you now to join in singing We Begin Again in Love. The lyrics were written by UU minister Rob Eller Isaacs, and the music was composed by First UUer Les Kleen.
For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time we have struck out in anger without just cause, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For the selfishness that set us apart and alone, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For losing sight of our unity, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
Thank you so much, Brandon and Nathan, for that beautiful song. I invite you to go back with me for a moment to a time when you were in school, any level. I think this experience is pretty universal. Do you remember what it felt like to go back to classes after having a summer off? As a type A personality, the first day was always my favorite day because it was usually the day you would receive your list of assignments for a particular period of time, whether for the next month or the next semester. While my classmates around me are groaning as they flip through the list and see the requirements that seem beyond what any one human being can possibly tackle, I get out my fresh, clean agenda and my row of colorful pens, and I start filling in all of the assignments, giving each class its own color, which of course matches the folder I'll put the syllabus inside into my book bag. Then when I get home, I would transfer all of my assignments to the giant wall calendar up on the wall beside my desk. My anxiety for the new school year would not subside until I was able to lay out what my semester was going to look like in fun colors so I could project when the toughest weeks were going to be. Throughout my 25 straight years of schooling, this system worked pretty well. My type A personality was fed by my organization, and I could focus on the stack of books in front of me that had to be read in 3 short months. And for most of my schooling, this system did work wonders. My extreme introversion led me to pursue courses that were heavily focused on reading and other intellectual challenges, and I almost skated through without having to do that most dreaded group work. As the type A, overly introverted member of the group work for me meant high anxiety, last minute deadlines, and being the one who was probably going to end up putting the finished product together. So if you can't tell, I absolutely despised group work. And my partner Jay can probably confirm my suspicions, but I believe the worst parts of myself usually came out during group work. As my anxiety level rose, I found myself getting more judgmental and cynical in all aspects of my life because a needed part of myself was not being met. I wasn't able to control the way the group operated through my organization, the way I could control the completion of solo assignments. And there's probably a good mix of people here today who either loved or hated group assignments in school. I don't know how my fellow group project equals high anxiety people got themselves through it, but I convinced myself that all I had to do was get through school, and then I would never have to deal with the anxiety of group work ever again. I can hear the laughter through the computer screen. It's okay to laugh at my extreme naivete. As we've spent this past year, this year we all started with dreams of a 2020 vision of wonderful promises. We've learned that group work is not just a dreaded assignment confined to a school structured setting. We've learned that despite having to stay physically distant from one another, we have needed to rely on one another for things that we used to be able to do on our own. And during this long and brutal election season, we witnessed the importance of coming together, working together in safe ways to fight for our values and ethics. And now, as we have numbers that back up how divided we truly are as a country, we know that working together is more vital than ever. Creating a world that our Unitarian Universalist principles and vision require a variety of skills and talents. But the one thing they require from each of us, no matter if we're on the extreme ends of the introvert-extrovert scale or somewhere in the middle, is to be in relationship. And anyone who has lived through 2020 can tell you, anyone who has had any interaction with another human being can tell you this isn't always easy. So what do our Unitarian Universalist principles tell us about how to move forward, how to stay in the conversation, how to start healing our relationships with one another? When we examine our second principle, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, we may, like all of our principles, falsely assume that it is something that can easily be checked off as something we can do without much effort. As I watch our coffee hour each Sunday and see the wonderful conversations taking place, I see the living into this principle. People checking in with others, finding out how their lives are going, and offering words of encouragement, advice, or compassion, depending on the situation. As UUs, I think we can all agree that we're pretty good at talking. But all of our principles are a roadmap to a world that is more just and compassionate, not solely within the safety and security of these virtual walls or in our interactions with other UUs. Our principles challenge us to leave the security of this First UU bubble and face the challenges and struggles that the world brings our way every single day. And I can't stop thinking about that word every that is in our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. It feels like every should be snuck into this principle as well, because you can't work towards seeing and valuing the inherent worth and dignity of every person if you don't start at a place of going into every human relation with justice, equity, and compassion. So what do those three words mean? Justice, equity, and compassion. When we hear the word justice, we may immediately think of the justice system, a system of rules and laws that, if followed, are supposed to keep everyone safe and hold the bad guy responsible when they break one of these rules. Many point to the justice system when they hear that someone did something that violates one of these laws as justification for why this person should be locked up or charged with a crime. They look at the law as black and white, and all you need to do to be able to live the life you want outside of the criminal justice system is not violate any of these laws. Well, the problem with this logic is that the law is black and white. I don't mean that in the traditional use of the phrase that there's a good choice and a bad choice. I mean that the law is black and white because the law is created by a system that views justice through a biased lens. It treats people of color differently than it treats the same crime committed by a white person. With the introduction of the war on drugs, our prison population went from 300,000 to over 2 million in just 30 years, significantly increasing the number of people of color in prison because of a decision to target the specific drugs that were found more frequently in populations of color rather than in white communities. We imprison a higher percentage of the Black population in the US than South Africa did at the height of apartheid. We made a very conscious decision to make addiction related to particular drugs a crime that must be prosecuted rather than spending money on building up our mental health services that could help fight an addiction rather than convict it. Unfortunately, this is just one of the many examples of discriminatory laws within the justice system. So what does justice in human relations mean in this principle? Does it mean that we're supposed to obey the rules and laws of this country ahead of human relations no matter what, because they are the rules and laws of this country? Or are we called to stand against injustice as we stand in covenant with one another? I think this principle calls us to fight injustice, to challenge it, to work hard to change it, to speak to a person who you feel did wrong, and you might hear an important story that contradicts a strictly yes-no idea of what justice means. And if a law is unjust and immoral, aren't we as Unitarian Universalists called to challenge it based on our principles, sources, and our covenant with one another? In our efforts to heal broken relationships, we are not called to sit silently by and let injustice continue, but we are called to stay in the conversation, to forgive ourselves and each other and begin again in love, knowing that it might feel impossible sometimes. So how does equity fit into all of this? At first glance, justice and equity may seem to be synonyms of one another, or at least very closely connected. After all, you can't have justice in an unequal system. But when I think about equity in the context of human relations, I think about the expectation one makes that the effort and attention one part of the relationship makes is expected to be equivalent to the amount of effort and attention one receives from a relationship. In his book on this principle, David Markham states, "We put a certain amount into a relationship, a family, a community, a society, and we expect to get a certain amount back. And if we don't get it, we feel cheated, betrayed, disrespected, treated unfairly," end quote. He goes on to say that it's as if we have a running ledger of everyone we're in relationship with, and that at the end of the day, we want to make sure that our credits match our debits, that we don't end up owing anything to anyone and no one owes us anything in return. I think Markham is right that this is the way our brains are wired. When it feels as though a relationship you have poured your heart and soul into is being questioned or challenged by a lack of similar response, it can hurt deep within your soul. It's a hurt that many of us may carry with us into future relationships, and it might scar our ability to give our full selves and trust that it won't be taken advantage of in a new relationship. But these scars can't prevent us from trying to be in relationship with others. And while it may be true we keep a running ledger in our heads of how equal our relationships may be, we can't let that dictate our actions. This principle doesn't say justice, equality, and compassion in human relations. It's justice, equity, and compassion. There are times that we need more than we can give, and vice versa. That's why I absolutely love the hymn, "From You I Receive," because I think it lays out the soul of the equity part of this principle. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. The hymn doesn't say, "From you I receive 75%, so to you I give 75%. It simply states, "From you I receive, to you I give." So while I think equity in human relations is partially what David Markham lays out as an expectation that relationships will be equal, we cannot make our relationships contingent on this. We must be open to the possibility that sometimes a relationship will require more from us, or we may require more. But at the end of the day, together we share, and from this we live. This struggle is why I think it's so important to not ignore that compassion is also a crucial element within the principle. It states justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Because y'all, we are still human. We might try with all of our hearts to have justice and equity in our human relations all of the time, but that's just not possible. We're going to mess up. We're going to say something or do something that someone finds hurtful or offensive. And hurtful and offensive things are going to happen to us. It sucks. It can hurt deeply when it happens. So when that inevitable human thing happens, how are we going to respond? According to this principle, we're called to respond with compassion. It may feel so much better and easier to respond with a desire for revenge and vengeance. After all, the popular television show Revenge aired for 4 seasons because it spoke to that internal desire that we all wish we could seek vengeance for the perceived wrongs against us. But the thing that annoyed me the most about that show is that whenever anyone was found out and confronted for some offense, they always responded, well, I did X because you did Y. And as the episodes progressed, you could probably use the whole alphabet for the number of things some character was seeking revenge for. And at the heart, it all stems from someone not having compassion when someone else did something they found hurtful. Now, I want to pause here and just make it very clear that there is such a thing as a toxic relationship. An unfortunately common example is a relationship in which there is some level of abuse. These are not the relationships I'm referring to. If you're in one of those relationships, please consider finding a way to sever that connection. This principle and this faith does not call us to maintain and sustain toxic relationships. And if you have questions about the distinction between a healthy and a toxic relationship, please let me or someone you can trust know so we can help you process. So excluding toxic relationships, I think this principle is focused on calling us to have empathy with one another. It calls us to go beyond what we all know as the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It calls us instead to what is referred to as the platinum rule, do unto others as they would have you do unto them. Do unto others as they would have you do unto them. We don't know the personal experiences that one another have, so we can't possibly know that what we would want is what others would want. So I ask you, are we a people who seek vengeance so intensely that we must follow the rule of an eye for an eye, seeking retribution for every perceived wrong? Or can we be a people who has compassion for one another, that seeks to be empathetic in our relations? There's a lot packed into one of the shortest of our principles. When you dive deep, none of the principles are as easy or straightforward as we may originally believe. This is why we'll be singing Comfort Me in a few minutes, because this principle can get very personal very quickly. And it can be very helpful in our healing to take a moment for ourselves and seek comfort deep in our souls. This principle calls us to examine our relationships with one another, all of our joys and successes, but especially our hurts and disappointments. When we seek justice and equity in human relations and we fall short, which we all will probably many times, we seek compassion. And alternatively, when those we are in relation with stumble and fall short of our usually very high expectations, we must show compassion as well. In the moment, it may feel impossible, and it may require a good night's sleep, a nice hot bath, and some cuddles with a cute kitten to start to see the situation more clearly and see past the hurt. But we must find a way to live into our fundamental promise to remain in covenant with one another. Unfortunately, our teachers were right. Life is group work. It's messy and doesn't go according to the plan we laid out, and means we have to find a way to work with all kinds of personality types to pursue a common goal. But the good thing is, you get to decide if you're going to judge someone's actions or if you're going to take that brave step and seek justice, equity, and compassion in every human relation. In this time for healing, May we choose to follow the path that leads to right relations and upholding our covenant with one another. Blessed be, and may it be so. I now invite you to join me in singing Comfort Me.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul.
Comfort me, oh my soul. As we reflect on how to expand our circle of care during the season of gratitude, I invite you to consider what gifts you plan to give this year. First UU is a church that matters. It is in the foundation of our being to love, to care, and to be generous. We know this world is a long way from being fair to all people. It takes all of us to make it better. To offer our gifts and pay our promised pledges is to say to ourselves and the world that we are defined by our hearts and our deeper values. Our Share the Plate recipient for November is Nemapp Food Pantry, a nonprofit who distributes food and other resources to Columbus residents living at or below 200% of the federal poverty level. Their mission is to be a leader in food access to create a hunger-free community. They also offer food delivery for those not able to safely leave their homes during the pandemic. The offering that helps build a better world and a better church will now be gratefully received. You can donate online on our website, text to give, bank by mail, or write a check and mail it in. Thank you for your generosity.
Thank you, Nathan. We're on each other's side. For our caring meditation, I invite you to return to the words of the chalice lighting Kelly read by Nancy MacDonald Ladd, who brings the poetry to the sensation many of us carry through the world and even to church, the quote, state of conflict for our very souls, a state both expansively hopeful and restrictively confined. We're hopeful that each and every one of us might encounter the sacred within, among, and beyond every human soul. But we're not yet free. We're confined, unfree, contained. We gather here cramped by the boxes we've been put into and the efforts we've made to put others in theirs. But this is a sacred place where we find the choice to step bravely out of our boxes and into the messy group project of living as fully as we can. And so I invite you to take a breath and notice what is good within, among, and beyond this gathered community. Find your freedom, even if it's just a bit of wiggle room, and breathe into it. And let that freedom expand your heart. And from this sacred place of hope and openness, let us hear each other's truths. This morning, Charpi wants her church friends to know that her mother passed away on November 14th. We're holding you in our care. And some joys. Carrie Ann W. writes, my brother-in-law, who was diagnosed with COVID 10 days ago, came home from the hospital on Saturday. That's great. And Wanda B. says she is grateful for the sunshine, and I am right there with you, Wanda. If I missed your joy or sorrow this morning, please let me know after the service. And now let us hold these cares and all those unspoken in the healing embrace of silence. And now let's sing together Answering the Call of Love by Jason Shelton.
The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide. actions of grace, in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim. We are answering the call of love. We are answering the call of love.
I can't think of a better way to wrap up our service than singing this song. Answering the call of love, virtual hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. Human relationships can get messy. They can be hard, especially in such a divided time as this. They can feel impossible. But I believe that we can seek justice and equity while having compassion for one another. I think it may be the only way to truly heal. And what a better place to practice than right here, surrounded by those who are walking this journey with us. As we extinguish our chalice this morning, I invite you to imagine holding hands with one another once again as we say our closing words together. The words will appear on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of vision. As we go forth, let us heal and transform ourselves and our world through reason and love. Our chalice is extinguished.
Our final Monday night conversation on race meeting before the new year will be tomorrow at 7 p.m. We will be finishing up our discussion of the UUA Commission on Institutional Change report. Please check your email tomorrow for more information. Do you know about our congregation's UU Cares network? This program connects members and friends to keep our spirits up during these strange times. For more information or to get involved, please reach out to Bob Mills. Everyone is invited to coffee hour after the service. To head back into Zoom after the postlude, you will need to click the link posted in the chat. You can also find the link in this morning's worship email. The passcode for coffee hour is lowercase UU. Coffee hour will go live a few minutes after this broadcast ends. See you there.
This week and every week, we express our sincere gratitude. Special thanks to everyone who made this service possible, especially Sue Farnlocker for the lovely floral arrangement on Kelly's mantle. Thanks to John Muir and Angela Rupert for tech support. To Elora and Aaron for that fabulous story. And thank you to all our musicians, Dr. Brandon Moss, Michaela Jones-Brown, and Nathan Ham. Thanks to our ministry team, including myself, Amanda Hayes, our Justice Coordinator, Amber Scott, our Director of Religious Exploration, Kelly McNeil, our Director of Congregational Life, and our Senior Minister, Reverend Dr. Marion Stewart.
Thank you so much, Nathan. I'd like to leave you all with the question, how can we start the long, difficult road of healing while seeking justice, equity, and compassion in our human relations, both as individuals and as a community? I invite you to ponder that with us in coffee hour, which will begin shortly. I hope you all have a great week, everyone, and see you next Sunday.